So everyone, all right, we'll go ahead and get rocking and rolling, Kristen, and team. We're gonna watch people continue to drop in. That's kind of how it works. And thank you, Jimmy. Yes, first home IQ. Oh, Gino's in the house. Very cool. I was
Hey,
hoping he was
Gino.
going to be able to make it today because this is really up his alley. He's loving on this because we want to help more home buyers get into home, and we believe in home ownership. We believe in creating net worth through home ownership and helping those not just buy the first home but multiple homes and all that good stuff. So
Yeah,
what?
it's near and dear to my heart because I was able to buy my first property when I was 23 years old, and that's been a blessing for me. And then on top of that, now I look at it, I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have been able to buy something when I was 19 or 20. And that is achievable. Sometimes people think that's, oh, that's impossible. Why would you do that? Or how would you do that? But it is achievable if you have a little help from your parents.
Yeah, and if you have the knowledge, like I bought my first home at 24, but I made so many mistakes and I sold that house within I think it was like 2 or 3 years later, which I should have held on to it, rented it out, I was moving, whatever, but I just didn't know those things. And so yeah, it's like not, partly buying the home and then also how do you manage that home?
Yeah, so you know, buying a home itself isn't the end all be all. It's building a portfolio over time that really is, that's the super secret, is to be able to do that. And people, when you tell people how many, well, we have all these properties, like, oh, how'd you do that? Well, it took me 20 years. It's not, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process, and sometimes
It's
you
a
move
long-term
forward.
play.
Yeah, and sometimes you move forward at a quicker rate. Like when there's opportunity, you might buy two or three properties one year, and then you might not buy anything for 3 or 4 years if the opportunities aren't right. And I think that's one of the things to recognize as a real estate investor, is to pounce when the opportunity's there and to know when to sit back and wait and watch.
Yeah,
So
totally.
if you guys don't know Kristen, she's been a large part of our entire industry for quite some time and has really been stepping it up over the last few years and has an initiative that we wanted to share with all of you. We'll be sharing it more at Momentum Builder, of course. So we're excited to have you as one of our speakers, Kristen, because you're not just a producer, but also taking time and effort to create something that all of us should know more about and be part of, which is First Home IQ. And most of you probably on this call, I know Jimmy, of course, knows about it, but some of you might not know much about First Home IQ. So we brought Kristen on to share what it's all about and how you can get involved and how it can help your clients and help you with doing good things for our industry. And so we wanted Kristen to come on and kind of share more about her vision and what they've been working on. I know you have a whole team of people helping. You have a bunch of ambassadors that are supporting it. And so, Kristen, thank you for joining us on our More Momentum call.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Very cool. So why don't you share a little bit about your background so they understand not just about First Home IQ, but your background so they understand that you're, like Gene and I, you're one of us, we're in the trenches with everybody else on the call, and we're grinding through what we need to do to get to the other side of this. But we'd love to know a little bit more of your story, your background, and then we'll dive into First Home IQ if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was kind of born into the industry as probably a lot of people are. My dad was a mortgage broker when I was young, so I grew up knowing a lot of the stuff that I later realized my peers did not know. And so I actually ended up trying to go away from the mortgage industry, and I started as a social worker in my career, and I was finding myself doing a lot of financial education and helping people understand how to get out of some predatory situation. People are buying cars with bad terms or all these different scenarios. And so I do lots of presentations helping people. And I ended up starting a company out of that called Cultural Outreach. And I did that for about 10 years, focused on primarily helping lenders and banks in understanding how to reach young and diverse markets. And then currently I've been doing speaking in the industry for that, I guess, for the last 10 or 12 years, primarily focused in that area and do a lot of research on next gen homeownership trends. So that's kind of what sparked getting into the nonprofit side of things. But I've published a next gen homebuyer report over the last 3 or 4 years, and have gathered, survey data from about 5,000 next gen home buyers, millennial and Gen Z home buyers at this point, really trying to identify what are the trends, what are the challenges that this next generation is encountering in buying their home, and also in financial literacy. And so, that all led to starting First Home IQ, realizing like there's just a huge gap when it comes to the, where we are with financial literacy, the kinds of barriers people are born into when it comes to identifying, how to buy a home, when to buy. A lot of people in the next generation think it's totally out of reach for them, and there's a lot of reason for that, So anyway, that's what has led to my passion and mission around First Home IQ, and just so excited to have what I'm, I guess, most excited about this is that really the mission behind this is to turn loan officers and realtors into first responders of the financial literacy crisis. And so it's an industry coming together to do this. It's not just, me and Dave Savage and Todd Buxton working on this. It's all of us coming together to work on this. And there, we can get into this later, but it's also a really great opportunity in generating new business out of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've had, I don't know, for a solid 10 years, I thought that I would put together a curriculum just to teach credit. Just credit alone is an entire gaping hole in our education system. It doesn't even exist. Like there's not even a class for it. There's nothing for it. And it's super important. And so just even if we can address that one little element, it'll help with all of people's lives if people understood credit. And, it takes a long time to understand how credit works. It's not as easy to really understand. It's not like it's not a simple concept. It's if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that. And you've got to look out for the pitfalls. And even if you have great credit, like we just got notified last week, your credit limit may be reduced due to lack of usage. And I was like, you put that card as number one now and fill it up every week. I don't want any cards to fall off of our credit report because it's a card that we've had for a really long time. So if you've had a card for a long time, even if it's a smaller limit, you don't want to lose aged credit lines. And that's just one little tiny example of something that would be nice to know when you're 18.
Yeah, it's wild to me that we don't teach this kind of thing in schools. And, that's obviously part of the mission around First Home IQ, but like, how do you go through all of that schooling, even college? A lot of times there's not any kind of education around this. Like you can go through business school. In fact, it was funny kind of, but a couple of years ago, I was speaking to a group of Harvard Business School students and asked them, if they thought you needed to put 20% down. That everyone in the room thought you needed to put 20% down to buy a home. That they didn't know about low down payment options or anything like that. And there were some basic financial literacy and home buyer literacy things that even in the most elite business school, they didn't know about, So
You don't get taught all this. I mean, I have a finance degree with a real estate background, and they didn't teach us any of that. They just taught you the rules and law around finance and real estate, but no financial literacy in any way, shape, or form, which is just sad because it's, one of the best investment vehicles. It is the best investment vehicle for any, mere mortal, to obtain and grow their net worth. What is this? A homeowner has a 73 time greater net worth than a renter. And people don't know that. And it's a lot of time it has to do with their value of their home going up over time. It's a forced savings account. It's a tax, advantage and so much more. And then if you can help them realize how to leverage that again and again to even more properties, that's how you build real net worth.
Yeah.
So where do you guys lie in the process? How are we trying to intercept youth and let them know that these classes are going to be out there for them?
Yeah, so it's starting with industry professionals going out into their communities through delivering presentation materials, which we're providing. We're also professionals going out and sharing content on their social media platforms. So it's sharing that message, which we're providing content and scripting, things that can support that. But, that's where we're starting, is how do we, empower our industry to go out into their communities and share this content. And we have things like First Home IQ quiz. It's where you can get a score. There's 25 questions you can take to evaluate how much you know about buying your first home. And the average score we've had over 600 respondents so far. And the average score is 57%. And with Gen Z, it's like 48%. It's a
Wow.
really bad. And so, but anyway, so our ambassadors have a unique link that they share from that, and then they can see the results of anybody that takes that quiz from them. And so for them, it's a way to stay connected and also share some education with those individuals. So those are that's where we're starting. The next phase will be for us to go into schools, like high schools and colleges, and develop some partnerships. We've built out a curriculum that they can use that would be more ongoing. And so, together, and we of course have online courses that all of this can drive people to learn everything from the credit and debt management through renting, when to rent versus own, and how to buy a home, all of that.
I'm looking at the site on First Home IQ, and there's a lot to it. You guys have a lot, resources and educators and presentations. And I love the quiz, Gina. I want you to take it, see how you do.
I was going to say, let's go head to head. Let's go head to head, Don.
Yeah.
I know. We'll see who gets the higher score.
We'll report back,
And I
Kristin.
challenge any of our team that are on this, go to First Home IQ. I'm curious what you guys score.
It's
Yeah,
kind of an interesting thing, right? Because I don't know what the questions are. So the reality is, just because you're experienced doesn't mean you're going to get a perfect score. So I think it's a fun thing for us to do.
Oh, there it is. First
Yeah.
Home IQ, get my score. So I'll be curious. We might have to have a little challenge through our office just for kicks, because this isn't, I mean, you figure 57%, which isn't really that much of a surprise, I'm sure, for you, Kristin, and us, because I know we share the same questions like you ask. We ask all the time, do you feel you have to have 20% down? Do you feel you have to have a 720 FICO score? Do you, all these things that people just don't know, and that's what they're born to think, but they don't know you can get in for as low as $0 down, to get into a home, or that you can get a gift, or your FICO can be 600. They don't know these things.
Or even college.
been,
I mean, the real cost of college isn't college itself, it's housing. And so if we could develop, systems for parents to acquire housing for their children as an investment property, as an asset for them, instead of just paying to somebody else who's already done that, or to the dorm rooms, then I think we solve some of the college crisis as well.
Yeah, I know one of our friends, the Kugels, they bought a property for their daughter to go to school in San Diego, and they kept the condo, and it's got like 400 grand in the equity right now, and they just bought it because why throw it away to, dorm rooms and so forth. So they bought her a condo and they kept it. And now it's worth, like you said, it's doubled in value since they bought it.
Yeah, at the bottom of that page on Get My Score on the website, there's a report that we published on that highlights some of the questions people got wrong or that were, most surprising. I don't know if this is surprising or not, but 70% of people in general said that they thought you needed more than the 3%. It was like 10% or 20%. They thought you needed to put down. So, there's things like that we take for granted. And I think even I've had friends take it in front of me, and as they're going through it, they're like, I don't know, it's asking a question about the most common credit scoring model, and they're like, I don't know, Credit Max, is it FICO? I think I've heard FICO before. I'll click that one. And these are like smart people that are successful, making good money, you kind of take for granted some of that stuff. So
yeah, no, again, I think that the earlier we can do something about this, the better off people will be. I mean, credit card management, just how to manage that. I remember my first credit card for $500 from First Bank of Hawaii, and then you get another one for 250 and another one for 400 and another one 1,000. Well, how do you over the next 5 years take that to where there's $20,000 limits and $30,000 limits and things of that nature? So then your credit score becomes less volatile if you have larger credit limits, and all those things that I think we're just missing. So I love the cause that you're trying to fix. I think that you having the twofold approach scholastically and boots on the ground, I think is a good way to get the word out there, and pretty sure it'll snowball for you.
Yeah, and I think at this point we've launched 2 rounds of ambassadors. We have over 60 ambassadors, and I think if each individual shares some of the content around understanding how to build your credit score or how credit cards work and things like that, imagine the impact we can have if we continue to scale this, and then hopefully some of these individuals are also going into their local communities in some way and doing a presentation here and there. Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. And the other side of this that we could talk about is like, this is a really difficult market. It's also really difficult to get into that next generation community. I think, there's a lot of skepticism and distrust, and that's come up a lot in my research. And one of the best ways to overcome that is through education and showing up. Younger people often just don't know anyone that they can trust or ask questions, and obviously you're not getting the education. So if you start there, if you start showing up in these different ways, that can really snowball into new channels of business, not just with the younger consumer, but also with their parents and with their friends and with the educators and the partners you can bring into delivering that education.
Well, looking at your site, it's really cool. And there's a lot of fun stuff that, like, as originators, especially those who choose to be ambassadors, there's a lot of great information that you have on here that they can share that others don't
Yeah.
know, and saying, hey, you're looking at, the scores, like you said, Gen Z is 48, millennials 56, 67. For even those that are 45 and older, you would think would understand it, but you're educating them. I mean, you're talking about, school debt and strategies, and what preparation to buy, and all these little, preparation quiz results, and stuff that they should know and find out more about. And it's cool that, for those who will lean in and try to really give value, that's what we're realizing. You have to give value first, and that's where you build trust. And you're providing them a great opportunity with all these the education and the scoring models, and how you can help, with financial literacy. It's a big push, because I know even, Dave's really behind it, I know, and Todd Bookspan, and even, Barry B was a big thing. When we do momentum building, he's like, why don't you guys please help us with financial literacy? Like, he was a big proponent too. Like, and that's why we always bring in economists now at the event, so that they can talk about the things we should know as originators. We really should understand financial literacy more. And when we brought on, we only have, we have Barry, of course, but we also have um, Diane DiMartino coming this time. Last year we brought 3 on, which was amazing, but I think a little overkill, because everybody's like, wow, you had me at hello. It was a lot
There's
of
a lot of economics.
economic education. So we're toning it down. So we're like, okay, we're gonna spoon feed you a little bit more.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's so important. And I mean, it sets up loan officers to be able to be experts in their community. I mean, that's content they can directly share in their social networks and whatever, to be like, here's what we know from the experts. And you become that kind of yeah, like community expert in your network.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I'm looking at a couple of these things, and you think about, like, there's people out there doing first time home buyer seminars. Well, if 58% think that home buying is not attainable, that's why they don't show up, because they don't even think that's for them. They're like, we're not going to be able to buy a house, so why are we going to go? Now, if we pose that as free financial literacy course over the next 4 weeks, and then you get people of all likes, and you'll get people that find out that they are qualified and they can do it.
Yeah,
That's our goal, is
that's
to
the thing.
empower them.
I think it's really important that we come at this open-minded and very gently, building a foundation of financial literacy, because truly the next generation, both millennials and Gen Z, feel that homeownership, a lot of them feel homeownership is totally out of reach. And it makes sense. The last few years, I think it was a median down payment increased by 72% just since 2020. That is put, and then interest rates increasing, like that is putting this out of reach for a lot of people. But what you can do is that a lot of people don't know that they can qualify. They just hear those messages and they think, well, I need to think about other things now. And so, starting with that foundation of here's what you need to know, then that sets them up to be able to buy in the future and also to be able to know when they can buy. I think that's so important. Without that, you just have the skepticism. I almost didn't buy in LA a couple years ago because I thought that just hearing, the LA market is insane. I thought this was not a good idea for me. But once I really looked at the numbers, I was like, oh yeah, it does make sense for me. It's just hard to evaluate that sometimes with so much negativity that you're hearing from social media and across your network.
Yeah, the reality of the fear mongering that's out there as it relates to housing. The media is very slow to report good news and very fast to report bad news, and
They love bad news.
they love bad news. And I get
Because
it.
it sells.
Psychologically, it works. To report bad news works. So I understand why they do it, but it's not a very noble cause. And so we've got to be out there, whether it be the few of us that are carrying the torch and making sure that we bring out the truth about what's possible with home ownership and what's possible, not just with home ownership, but real estate investments or even financial management. I mean, I know people that have made, in my opinion, the mistake of putting everything into their 401k and they don't own their own home. And when I look at that and I look at how hard it is to build wealth in the stock market that we have today with the very little cash that people put into a 401k annually compared to how fast they could build wealth in real estate, it's not even comparable because there's
plus you're leveraging.
I was just gonna say there's no leverage when you do stock investments, and there's massive leverage with home ownership. And that's something we have to teach people, is that that's where you maximize the growth, is with that leverage. There's not a lot of places where you could put 5% down on something and have that multiply itself and almost double every year. In the Los Angeles market, it's not unbelievable to have 5 and 10% or 12 or 14% returns sometimes.
Well, especially
Yeah.
when you're talking leveraging, Gino, and those of you that are on the call go, what do they mean by leveraging? And a lot of you do understand, of course, but it just means if you took 25,000 and we're earning 4% on it in your 401k, how much money is that versus putting $25,000 on a house that's worth, with say 500k, and that's going up 4%. That's a huge difference. Now you're getting 4% on 500k instead of 4% on 25k. That's how you build wealth. That's leveraging. Nothing new to you, Kristin, but that's what we're trying to educate people on.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna try to pull this up. There was a daily episode podcast. It's a New York Times podcast called The Daily, and it was I don't know if I can get it here, but it was it's a 30-minute thing. It was on November 30th, called "Should You Rent or Buy? The New Math." And I would really encourage everybody to listen to that just to hear what other people are hearing. This is not good for the industry. I think in some ways it's a lot of people. It's experts talking about how often it makes more sense to rent. And I'm not saying it always makes sense to buy, but I think that it was pretty one-sided in a lot of ways. And I've had so many friends send this to me, saying like, "Oh, I'm so glad I didn't buy," or "Oh, I feel so much better about renting." And there's some really good valid points in there. And I think it would be helpful for people to hear what other people, especially younger consumers, are hearing, and then be able to. As First Home IQ, we're gonna do some kind of like fact check or alternative scripting around this to help people understand in the industry. Here's what people are hearing. Here's what you can respond with. And then also for consumers to see like, here's another response to this. Cause I think, this is what people are listening to and hearing out there. So.
Yeah, I think, Kristin, that the reality of the matter is, I always joke, I said, those in the media that are always asking for and begging for the market to crash, it's because they didn't buy enough real estate.
Mm,
right? So that's the reality of the matter is they don't believe in real estate. They didn't buy in real estate, and they're remorseful that they didn't buy in real estate. So they decided to take the actions against it to try to make everybody understand why it sucks to be in real estate. The one thing I will agree on the rent versus own argument is if your only purpose of home ownership is investment, then maybe buying a home for yourself is not correct. Investing
yep.
in other types of real estate investments is a much better investment than in your own home. But your own home is a very low down payment. The benefits are being able to get in with a very low down payment and being able to stay in that home, even if you only need it for 2 years, like you said, you could keep that as an investment property and buy your next home and start building a portfolio. And so I think that there is I don't think renting is the answer. I think investing properly is the answer. And home ownership is not the answer for everybody, especially if they have very volatile work history. Like if somebody doesn't have job
Yeah.
stability, yeah, maybe it's not for you. You need to have some job stability before you decide to get into a 30-year commitment.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. And one of the points that I did like in the podcast is they were talking about how, a lot of people are buying, like you need to think longer term. And so if you're only planning to be in the home for a couple of years, that may not be the right choice unless you're able to buy and do the house hacking thing where you're like, you live in it for a year and then you get someone to rent, whatever. But you really need to think about what your goals are. And it's not just a financial investment, it's also an investment in your personal stability. And we need to have those conversations too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So how does one become an ambassador, and what are the ambassadors doing? I know there's certain steps, and you've got 60 ambassadors now in the industry. How does that work? Because I'm sure some of our team
Yeah.
members would be interested
So,
in that.
yeah. So in the ambassador program, you're getting like we have our community services like the IQ courses. We have a couple of presentations that are available to anybody, and then of course the quiz. As ambassadors, you're getting a lot more personalized support, like the quiz. What you have your own webpage that has the personalized quiz that you can use, and you get the emailed results from people that take that. You also get things like materials to share on social media and scripting for videos if you want to create that. So there's a whole social impact and business strategy there. And then there's also playbooks and support around how to start doing presentations in your community. So there's the education, outreach, strategy support, additional presentation materials and marketing materials, things like that. And then the other area is I guess just like we have a community with other ambassadors where we're constantly sharing new content. So the way that you can become involved, if you would like to be part of the mission and support that, it is both a financial and time resource investment. So we ask for minimum donation. Some are doing a certain amount per loan that they close, or some people want to just be on an auto pay amount. And then they're also doing either sharing their content on social media or doing something to share financial literacy in their communities. And so if you go to the firsthomeIQ.com/ambassadors, that's where you can sign up. And it's also on the industry partners page. I can drop the link in there, but there's a form that you fill out, and then it's an application process, and then I would be in touch with more information about that, and we'd go through the next steps on the onboarding.
Cool. One of our LOs that's on the call actually already took the test and got a 92. So the bar is set.
All right, cool. I love
Who
it.
did that?
Clarissa.
Oh,
So
nice, Clarissa.
good job putting it right out there, just getting her done.
That's not too bad at all.
No, that's a good start. Now I'm like, dang, I better pay attention. I can't wing it.
Yeah, are you gonna let her know that you didn't get a 92?
No, we have to all make it public. We have to make it public.
No,
So
well, what I love though is instead of just the donation part of it, I mean, I know there's a dollar amount that you're to be an ambassador, but also that they're contributing on a regular basis to it, correct? Don't they, like, you know, have a
Yeah,
certain amount per loan that can go towards, basically uh, is it going towards a first home IQ? Is it going towards, where does that go to? Because I know there's a donation
yeah.
portion of
So yeah, we are a nonprofit, so everything is your, donations are tax deductible. But yeah, it's going towards the curriculum development and content that we're creating to, and the partnerships with schools, all that kind of stuff, and of course supporting the ambassador program. And eventually, we're
I
going to
love
create
that you get
curriculum
so
that's in.
much
Yeah,
instead of just signing up for something. I love that you get there's personalization so you can really say, hey, I'm behind this thing. I love that you're getting materials, video scripting, playbooks, so that someone could really be the ambassador for that in their community. And you could, I would imagine you can take this collateral and go to schools or,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. Like
businesses and
that,
so
go to the
forth,
school
correct?
district, Don. You can go like here that we have a couple different school districts. You can go to a couple different school districts or the large community college that we have here. And, if we were to offer to give free pro bono classes, I'm sure they would give us a classroom and say, sure.
Yeah, and I think partnering, being part of a nonprofit, if you're coming at it just from a, mortgage company or something like that, sometimes it can feel like you're there to solicit business, or that's what I've heard from other schools talking about that. But if you're there on behalf of a nonprofit, you can, it's easier to get your foot in the door. So, but yeah, one thing that Dave Savage had come up with was this idea of both purpose and profits. And, there is we're very focused on the purpose, but you can also generate business by being focused on that purpose. And so we're creating content and resources that are going to support both of those areas for you.
Well, we all need good content, not just content we're finding out. So this is what's nice is there's a, like you said, I love purpose. There's a purpose behind it, and helping others and educating others. Like you said, you're reaching out to either next gen, but also their parents are going to be appreciative of this, and educators are going to be appreciative of this, and this is actually what we should be doing for our communities as as financial stewards. We're trying. We live off of our community, therefore we should give back to our community, and this is a great way to do it, without a doubt. So what are you seeing out in the market right now, Kristen, in regards to the mortgage industry in general? Are you feeling
Well,
that we're getting closer to the other side of this crazy market?
yeah, I mean, I think for me, the bubble that I exist in is primarily with our ambassadors and, and some groups of loan officers. But I think mostly what I'm hearing is that the people that are still doing business well and getting more business are doing a lot of outreach. Like they're involved in action. Of course, again, these are people that are associated with First Home IQ in some way, but I think that, I think it's really important that people are going at this from not just so waiting, like we're going to wait for things to get better, but to actually deploy some of these boots on the ground strategies. And that's where, and also, some of the ways I've seen people really successful is with realtor partnerships. And of course, that's no surprise, but we had one ambassador who contacted over 100 real estate agents who he didn't know, or who he didn't have an existing relationship with, and just talked about First Home IQ. And it has spurred a lot of new relationships and new leads. And just by saying like, hey, I want to tell you about this program I'm involved with. Is it something you'd like to be involved with? And people are excited. People are looking for something that they can like really, give back and feel good about, while also it being related to their business. And so finding ways, whether it's with First Home IQ or not, finding ways to have new conversations, but it be personal, is a really great way that I'm seeing people generate new business in a really difficult market.
No,
Yeah.
you create, and you can tell. I mean, I'm looking at the list of the ambassadors you already have, and of course, I've been in this industry for 3 decades, and part of the speaking tour and momentum builder and stuff. And of course, it's no surprise that some of the rock stars that continue to figure out ways to build business are part of this. You know, you're talking Jeremy Forcier, Wally, and I mean, you go to, of course, Sean Herrera was, I know, a big part of it and so forth. I can go down this list, and most of these individuals are all people that know how to build business. They don't wait for it. They create it, and most of them I know. Amir, I mean, I'm going through this list, and it's the who's who of some of the top people. They're ambassadors to the industry, not just this thing. And it's good that they're leaning out, because you have to go create your own business right now. You can't, like you said, wait for it. Those who are waiting for it are dying. They're literally going away. That's why we've gone from 194,000 loan officers that did at least one transaction a year. We're down to 80,000, I believe, right now. And Gina and I both agree that there's a good chance that by spring we'll be down to 50,000. And not wishing ill will on anyone, of course. It's just there's those that are going to add value to our industry and survive because of it, and not just wait for the market to get better and therefore the refi market and be an order taker. You have to be an ambassador to the industry in general, and give education, knowledge, and reach out to people, let them know what's going on in the industry, and let them know how to help others get, and especially, like you said, you giving financial literacy to the next gen is huge. We don't get this in school. I didn't. And like you said, not even in college. You think you'd come out of it a little bit smarter, and they don't even teach you how to balance a checkbook, let alone buy a house.
Yeah, I think I do think it's a noble cause. I think it's the good thing that we should all do. And there is a lot of opportunity in building relationships when you're doing things for charity. So many people that they don't realize that that's what it does, is it does build trust, because you're both helping a cause that you believe in at the same time. And so it creates a different sort of relationship, instead of a vendor relationship where you're like, hey, I can do this for you, and what are you going to do for me, and all that. It's, hey, let's do this together. It's a completely different approach to whatever it is that you're trying to attract. So you attract people that have the same interests as you, that like, and trust, and then that's how your network expands with people that are like-minded and want to achieve the same things.
Yeah, and that's
we've got
where
another 92 in the books there.
Oh, Stephen, that's part of our team. All right, you guys know what you're doing. They probably missed the same one, I bet.
Yeah, I'm curious what people are missing. I wonder if, especially, I hear a couple of them sound tricky. So I don't want them to be tricky, but I want them to be not so obvious. So, but if you're like listening to this and taking it, I could see you like missing something and not realizing it. So you could get 100 next time.
I think
I was going to mention.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I think the idea here is for people to get first exposure to First Home IQ. There's a lot more to it. We can't, in 40 minutes of talk time, really get deep into the things that you've been working on for, I don't know, a year or a year and a half. And it's constantly evolving. I know what startups are like and new projects are like, and it's super exciting, but it's constant change.
Yes, it really is. But what's exciting about that is that the constant change is actually coming from people being involved. And so like our ambassadors, came up with the idea of having that personalized quiz, and they've come up with a lot of the ideas, and we're like, oh, good idea, let's do it. And we can constantly move based on people saying what is important to them and what's going to help them make the most impact. So I think that's a cool part of where we're at anyway.
I mean, something simple. I didn't even think about this, but it could be part of your sales cycle. You could say, when you set an appointment with a client, you could send them the link and say, hey, before we have our first meeting, I'd like you to take this assessment. And say that way, if they come at you with a 47, that you're going to approach it differently than if they come at you with a 94. And so you can get a quick snapshot of the aptitude of your consumer as well. So there's a tool there that can be used in the sales process. Look at Betty, Jimmy.
We're not calling you a tool, Jimmy. Just speaking of.
Hi, Jimmy.
I want to bring Jimmy on, because I know
he's
got a lot of passion behind this.
100%. When I first heard about it, I think, Kristin, it was at the Modern Mortgage Summit where was the first rollout of it. And I was a founder friend right away.
Yep.
I think this is so needed for the industry, but I think like we're all evangelists to education and, teaching homeowners how to do this. I think any loan officer is transitioning to a mortgage advisor, and there's so much like sales in this too. You can really attract a lot of people to you by being an expert and by actually teaching people stuff. I think that it's for real estate agents too. Like, are you calling them and saying, hey, let's go out to coffee so I can tell you that I close on time and have cheap rates and costs? Or are you going to say, hey, I'm putting this together. I'm doing a class on copy and paste a first home IQ presentation, and invite your buyer to it. I mean, you can lead with value right away, and I think it's understated. I mean, Kristin, you're great at pitching the evangelist part of it, but I mean, I think loan officers can really use this as a tool to increase their production. And like everybody's hurting for business. You want to do something different? This is just a great, easy way to actually lead with value and earn a referral.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
love the way you're
earn a
talking about that.
referral, heaven forbid.
Well, I know, but I mean, it's just like, are you actually an advisor? Are you actually helping? Or are you just providing a service of, I'm going to close your loan for you and then basically forget about you? So yeah, I can't support First Home IQ enough.
Very cool.
Dang,
And that's why we want to
we
bring
got a
on Jimmy.
96 just came through now. Now what are we gonna do? I'm not taking it anymore.
I haven't taken it yet. I'm gonna have
Right
to.
now he's afraid.
I'm scared now.
No, this is very cool, Kristin, that you have brought this to our attention. Like Jimmy says, I mean, it'd be much better than to be known as, basically, an educator as opposed to just a loan officer.
100%.
Yeah,
And,
you brought up
and you're given all
Shantero.
the tools. They become part of First Home IQ. They get all the tools to do that. You don't have to. Trying to create this stuff is really hard. A lot of us would love to do this and think about doing it, but without the tools and the effort behind it, and all the effort that you've put into it and the team has put into it, it's too hard to do. And you've already put it all together to where it's simplified and makes a difference. I love that you have ways for them to promote it too. I mean, it's a big deal, and to become that educator in your community. And like Jimmy said, how hard is it to go to your real estate, community that's dying for any way to get in front of, the community as not just a real estate agent, but just have something of value to get out there, and you're providing it for them. And then you team up together to do it. It's a no-brainer,
Yeah,
Anybody
I
have
think
any questions out there for Kristin or Jimmy or us? Let us know you're alive.
They're all
At
taking the
least,
test.
reactions or something. I know you guys at least were distracted enough to take the test, which means you're paying attention and want to know more about it, which is cool. And Kristin, we're gonna go big on this, obviously with Dave on the stage, and I know Sean will probably be a big part of it, but we're going to try to get as many ambassadors as we can at Momentum Build this year. I think it'd be really cool, because then nationwide we can make an impact, because people start seeing it more and more and more will want to be involved in it. And I don't mind saying it, but we'll create some FOMO, for people going, shoot, I'm not part of it. Ooh, that's bad. I should be, an evangelist for this as well. And kudos for you taking all the effort to, create all this, because you had to do this in your basically in your spare time, and you obviously have a giving heart. And this is, putting that effort into it is huge.
Thanks. Yeah.
Cool.
I was just gonna mention, I think a lot of the ambassadors that I am talking to who are finding a lot of success with this are people who are trying to build trust with consumers through transparency and education. And so, in any way that you can lead with that, whether in whatever, tools, resources that are available to you. I think, one of the stats that we found in last year's Next Gen Homebuyer Report was that 58% of Gen Z, only 58% of Gen Z said that they trusted a loan officer to help them make smart decisions about their mortgage. And you think about if there's that much skepticism about the profession, there's skepticism about the market, which we've talked about. What better way than to come into this with education, both in whatever way you can share that on your networks, and like Gino, you talked about in the process of your sales process, like just right away be leading with not just education but the transparency conversation too. So anyway, that's my last thought there.
No, it's cool. And we appreciate you coming on to start helping us to start promoting this more and more to our community, especially, Jimmy's helping us out and getting our Facebook page now launched. We'll add this. Katie, who's helping us with this call, we'll make sure we add First Home IQ to our app, and if anybody wants to see the app, go check it out. It's just the Momentum Builder app, and it's got all kinds of, the goal of it is to be a resource, just like you are, Kristin. And we're going to add First Home IQ as one of the squares, basically, that people can click on to find out more. Because we have coaching in there, we have tools such as Shape and others in there, and so forth, to make sure that all our community members know what coaches, what tools, what recordings are in there, and so forth. So yeah, there you go. Oh, look at Katie go. All right, so download the app. What's cool is, Jimmy, we're up to 875 organically. We have not even pushed this out and promoted it. It's just organically been growing. So make sure if you don't have the app, make sure you download the app so you can stay connected. And then pretty soon we'll have our Facebook page blowing up, because Jimmy's going to help us out with that so that everybody can communicate. And Kristin, of course, will push out, First Home IQ on that, so more people understand it, because we got to build a journey so they understand what this is and how they can be part of it. Also, we got to push out. I don't know, what's our next slide there, Katie? Do we have it regarding Momentum Builder, or is it about the next call? Next week's call. We're going to take a little break, by the way. We're going to enjoy the holidays and take a little break. See, happy holidays. And we're gonna Gina and I are actually going to take a couple week break and give you a break, because most of you will be hopefully visiting family and enjoying the holidays. So we're gonna do that, and then we'll re-engage with everybody beginning of January. We got some great calls. I know we're starting with Roland, and Gina, as you know, we got Josh Pitts right after that. And Jimmy, we always enjoy you being part of these calls. You're such a great ambassador of Momentum Builder and giving back. And then, of course, you probably have a slide regarding Momentum Builder, right, Katie? There it is. And it's so I want you guys to help with this message, Kristin and Jimmy, because you guys will see the list of speakers, and I'd say 90% of them you go, yeah, I know them, or I've heard them. But Jimmy already knows that we're changing up the game. So instead of the usual where the speakers come up and talk to you and then they leave, they tell you their message and you leave. We're changing up a little bit, because right now more than ever, and Chris and Jimmy, I know you can attest to this, we need strategies that are working in today's market, and we need to know how to utilize those strategies, what's available, understanding them and utilize them. So the speakers this year, instead of going up and having, let's just say 45 minutes to an hour of speech talking about what's working for them, now they have a TED Talk. They have 20 minutes to get right to the point, right to their 4, 3, 5, whatever their strategies are, their bullet points. And then we're going to have the audience type in on the app what their questions are, so that then the speaker comes back on and will make sure that people understand what the message is and how to implement the message through live Q&A. So it's going to be very interactive, so that now, and the speakers are excited about that, and you probably would be too, Kristin, because now you can engage with the audience and not just feel like, because I know I've been a speaker and I leave and I'm like, I hope they got some of that. I hope they utilize something, versus really engaging with them, making sure they understand how to leverage and utilize the strategies that we're sharing. And it's going to be tons of networking, and the community members are all going to be part of it. What's nice is our speakers don't just run and talk and run. They actually stay part of the community. They stay part of the networking events. It's going to be a completely different event than anyone's ever been to. Any input on that, Jimmy?
I think it's cool to shorten it up. I think that that's a wise thing because I think that, I mean, my goodness, everybody there is like a speaker. You could all talk for 2 hours if you gave somebody all the time. But if you,
Right.
20 minutes, bullet points, we all have ADHD basically. So, keep it high level. And I think it's going to have a greater opportunity to make an impact. I think people will be able to take like the best pieces out of everybody. And bro, I think it's cool.
And
Yeah, well, think
we've
about
asked
it.
all the speakers also to sit at the tables, hang out with people, be a part of the community, not just be a speaker. Like, and so the people that have been chosen is because they're people that are committed to Momentum Builder, committed to helping our industry and making sure that, we kind of hold hands through this hard time to get to the other side, because it is challenging out there. We don't want to pretend like it's not. But look, some of these faces here have been in the industry for 30 or 40 years, and not one of them says, well, the industry's dead. That's it. It's over. I don't know one of them that's ever said that. All of them say it's going to be great on the other side.
Right. Right. And Jimmy, to your point about it's kind of cool that it's shorter. The reason, if you study TED Talks, and they'll explain why it's 18 minutes, based on your attention span. It's long enough to get your point across, but not too long to lose their attention. But I love the quote they asked Winston Churchill, was one of the best orators ever. He had great speeches, and they asked him, how long does it take to prepare your speeches? And he goes, well, that depends on how much time you give me. He goes, you give me an hour, I can do a speech right now because I got plenty of time to figure out during that hour-long speech what I need to, how to get my message across. But if you give me 10 minutes, it'll take me 2 weeks to prepare for that speech because I only have 10 minutes to hit my bullet points and what's important. So that's kind of why we changed up the game, with let you get to the important parts, because that's what we need right now in our industry. We need strategies, and we need to know how to implement those strategies. And the people we're bringing in are the rock stars. They understand it, and we're going to help you reboot your business. Thank you, Katie. That's our new theme. How you like it, Kristin? Cool, huh? Everybody has to reboot their business right now, right?
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. That's great.
Very cool. Well, we're right on time, and we thank you all for being part of our call. I know it's a little bit lower attendance due to the fact it's holidays, but Kristin, thank you very much for starting the journey of people understanding, First Home IQ. We got to take it bit by bit,
Yeah,
and
thank
bite by
you.
bite, and letting our community get to know you better, and us to understand your platform and the financial literacy piece that is so needed. Like I said, our industry is now getting more and more behind really teaching financial literacy, not just doing loans. We definitely need to teach that better. So you're leading the charge, Kristin. So good for you. Nicely done.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to share and talk about the mission together. Thanks everybody for attending and taking the quiz and sharing the quiz.
Look at that. People are signing up.
Yeah,
I love
I
it.
like that.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool. Very cool. So thank you. Put up the happy holidays, and everybody have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. And we definitely feel that 2024 is going to be a lot better than 2023. And if you're part of Momentum Builder and First Home IQ, then we'll guarantee it'll be better.
that's right.
Absolutely, we'll guarantee it.
All the tools and resources, but you got to put in the effort.
Yep. Very cool. So thank you for being part of our call. Thank you, Kristin. You're a rock star. Thank you, Jimmy, for jumping on.
See you
And
guys.
thank you for Katie
Thank
for
you.
helping out. Everybody have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. Woohoo!